Okay guys, so we know that the 3-5-2 is the most overpowered and meta formation in the game right now. And it makes sense why. It has things from other meta formations and puts them all into just one god tier formation. You have the 2 CDMs for lots of defensive support, you have width from the left and right mid in the attack, which also doubles as a left and right wing back, giving you a 5 at the back in the defense. You also have the center attacking mid and 2 striker trio, just like the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, which I believe is also an insanely overpowered formation. So yes, it is the new meta in overpowered formation, however, there are some obvious weaknesses to it. There's space to the outside of the left and right center backs, which are also behind the left and right mid, so if you're quick enough, you can exploit that space. You could wreak havoc by having a player drop between their 2 defensive mids, which also would be right in front of their defensive line. And they also have no midfield. What, you think a player is gonna have a defensive mid going forward? You think FIFA players play attacking? Come on, let's be real. So because they virtually have no midfield whatsoever, you're gonna be able to control it if you have a couple players there. So the thing is, what formation has all of those things that can exploit the wings, that can drop between the 2 defensive mids, and that has a good amount of midfielders? In this case, it is going to be the 4-3-3 false 9, also known as the 4-3-3 version 5. It has everything I just mentioned to beat the 3-5-2. Your wingers are going to be exploiting that space behind the left and right mids and to the outside of their center backs. This formation has a center forward, which gets further forward than the center attacking mid, so it's going to drop between and behind the defensive mids, but it's not going to be so far up that it bothers the defensive line, so they won't really care about it that much. Along with that, you have 3 midfielders, 2 of which can make late runs in the midfield, and we all know by this point how I feel about those runs.
Moist.
The thing is though, it's not just good against the 3-5-2 either, it's good against a lot of other formations. You see that diamond in the midfield? That's going to allow you to dictate play extremely easily because you're essentially going to have 4 midfielders, all of which could go forward or could drop in and play in the midfield. So you could control possession, dictate play, and just be an absolute menace when it comes to possession on the ball. So obviously you guys are here for the tactics and instructions and the type of players you're going to need. So let's get into that and start off with the tactics first. Starting with the defense, we have pressure on heavy touch, 40 width, and 65 depth. Now the pressure on heavy touch is because the 4-3-3 false 9 is a very good natural pressing formation. You have your center forward and your 2 wingers that can press up top, and then you have your 2 center mids as well, making it 5 players that can press for you very easily in your opponent's third. However, that means anytime you press, you are susceptible to a counterattack. So if you feel as though you're being countered too easily, just bring it back to balance and that should be fine too. For the width and depth being at 40 and 65 respectively, you can just change that to whatever you want. I would recommend keeping it around that general area, but honestly in this case it's whatever you guys are most comfortable with. Now then, moving on to the attack, we have a long ball in the build-up play and then just balanced in the chance creation. Now I mentioned center mids are going to be making late runs from the midfield, and with a long ball on, I feel as though they get forward a lot more quickly and they do actually make those runs. However, we also don't want the forward runs or the direct passing because then the center mids are essentially going to go play at striker, and we don't want that. On balance, they'll stay at the center mids, make the run, and if the run's not open and they don't get past you, they run back and try it again, which is why balance is so important in this specific case. Specific? I don't know what I said. The width is at 40, which allows us to maintain that control in the midfield with that diamond. I want them all close together so then they can all contribute and have some good control with the ball. That also means we're going to be isolating our wingers, so then if the defense falls asleep, we can just pass it to one of them who's going to be wide open in the box. For corners and free kicks, you can obviously do what you want, but then for players in the box, I put it at 6. And listen, I tried 7 and 8, I tried 3, 4, 5, I tried a bunch of them. 6 was just the best, alright? So play around with that as much as you want, but I just felt 6 was better. Very good tactical analysis there. Now then, we're going to be moving on to the instructions, and these are pretty important because I feel as though it helps dictate the play a lot more rather than the tactics, so pay attention to this part specifically. For the defense, we have the goalie on counter crosses and sweeper keeper, but then everything else is just default and standard everything. The center backs you normally don't touch in a 4 at the back, but with the wing backs, I want them on balance, or at the very least, I could have them on overlap as well. I want them to keep the width and I want them to get forward. That's what's important for the wing backs here. For the defensive mid, we have him on stay back while attacking and cover center. Essentially, him and the 2 center backs are going to be your little triangle, your anchor when it comes to defending, so make sure you find a very good pure out-and-out defensive mid here. For your 2 center mids, I have both of them on get forward. However, one is on cover center and the other is on cover wing. Now, it doesn't matter what side is on cover wing or cover center, it's just the person specifically you want on cover center. Now, this cover center instruction is actually for the attack, even though it says defensive positioning. It's for the attack. Just hear me out. I want this player to already be central. He's the one that I want in the box and the one that I think is better attacking wise. So if he's more central already in the defense, that means he's going to be already in that spot where I want him to be in the attack as well. And then you could argue, why not have them both then on cover center? It's just because then I feel as though it's a little bit better defensively and also a little bit more attacking wise size as well to have a little bit more variability. Finally, for the attack, we have our center forward on stay forward, and then for the wingers, we have them both on get in behind and get into the box for crosses. Now, I mentioned in the tactics that the wingers will be cutting inside, so just let me explain that, alright? Because they have the get into the box for cross instruction on, that means they are still going to be cutting inside when you get to a certain spot on the field. And so I like this because one, they're not going to get into the way of the center mids who are getting forward, but then two, they're still going to stay out wide until the last possible second to where then you cut in and then you could pass it across to them who are most of the time going to be wide open. It's genius plays out here. It's like I'm Pep Guardiola. Now this last part here, I want to talk about the types of players that you are going to want. When it comes to the defense, for the left and right back specifically, someone that can attack, so Cuadrado, João Cancelo, that works for me. I mentioned for the defensive mid, you want them to be a pure defensive mid, someone who's big, who's tall, who can just essentially play like a third center back. For the two center mids, have them be kind of all around good, but I mean, in this case, I have Nakata, who's not that great at defending. He's still great at going forward. I would rather take that. So yes, box-to-box traits are good, but as long as they can get forward, that's kind of the main thing in this case. For your center forward, I would prefer if they were bigger, because then you could just launch the ball to them and head the ball down to your left or winger, right winger, center mids who are just making runs in behind. But if you prefer the shorter guys who are good at dribbling, that probably works too. And then for your wingers, yeah, they do need to be decent at crossing just in case they find themselves in that spot. So maybe some decent passing as well, so then they can cut it across. But they will also find themselves in shooting position, so make sure they can also shoot the ball decently well. So that is going to do it for this video, guys. If you do have any questions over it, if you do want to see any other formation review, let me know and I'll try to get that done for you guys. But like I said, that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been DMG. Peace.